Broadcasting live from the command center located in Jacksonville, Florida, this is Military Witnesses to UAP. I am your host, Shannon Scott. And backed by popular demand, located deep in the Missouri woods, my right-hand man, Rob Heatherly. We both have assumed the duties and responsibilities of continuing the conversation. So, buckle up, hold my beer, hang on, and let's get started with today's briefings. What's going on, Rob? Oh, you're muted, Rob. Let me unmute you. You're unmuted, Rob.
Yeah, thank you.
You're buffering
Everyone's
a
trying
little
to silence me these days.
Yeah, so what has been going on before we get into the good stuff?
Just a lot of research, man, and from a lot of fronts. Exciting times, most definitely.
It is. It really is. I say that all the time. We live in exciting times. Thanks everyone for the well wishes. I'm home from the hospital. I'm home hospitalized. I'm getting my IV, and I will. I'll continue my home hospitalization for 10 days. I thought it was going to be 3 weeks, but I will take 10 days instead. So thank you all for the well wishes. Other things in the news, stand by. Let me see if I can find it. It is right here, folks. UFO Expo, Jacksonville, Florida. Well, just the Palm Coast, Florida. Well, it's not happening. Let me get this. Take care of that, and let's go back into the overlays here. And yeah, they changed the. They probably did it because they weren't getting as many people buying tickets, so they moved it to Roswell, New Mexico. So if you live around Roswell, check out the UFOexpo.com and get your tickets. And there you go. I had to get a refund, unfortunately. I was really looking forward to going and seeing Travis Walton and Tom Reed and just everybody there. And I was going to do live broadcasts, multiple live broadcasts there. And yeah, it's not going to happen now. So life goes on. I get my money back and I go on vacation. And about 3.5 weeks, I guess, for a week, I'll be down in Orlando area. So I'm going to do a broadcast there with Roy catching up. I'm sure I won't go into the parks every day. All right, so let's see what else is in the news here. The first thing is Rob sent an article, and I'm going to go over that article real quick. I haven't read it, just it popped up.
Either you're cutting out or I'm cutting out. I'm not sure which.
Hopefully, I'm not cutting out. I'll tell you what, we put in some headphones here to help out.
Whose audio is jamming up, people? Mine or his?
I can hear you, Rob. Can you hear me?
Yep.
No, you can't. Yes, I can. Good.
Yes, I
Hopefully,
can.
you can hear me better. And
yes,
now I will
can.
not be yelling. I got to stop yelling. I'm always yelling. I get these on. I won't yell. I put my over the ear ones. I yell.
Yeah, it was causing it to sound robotic too, where it was tinny and cutting in and out. But they said it's a good now, so I think we're good to go, man.
All right, case closed. Next on.
Yep. Case closed. Yep. Another satisfied customer.
Yeah. All right. So, former Israeli space security chief says aliens exist. Humanity not ready. Okay. Just before I read this, Rob, I assume you already read it. Is this talking about the same
Yeah. And
that
I'm,
one head dude?
yeah. And the only reason I bring it up is we're looking for reasons why the Air Force might be dragging their feet so hard. And
Ooh.
we're reaching out there now. And I'm not saying that there's any validity to this whatsoever, but you can't really out 100% as impossible because they're acting rational at this point as to why they're not offering up any information. Um, there's something profound there that they are just still rejecting even the will of Congress. So
Wow.
I just want just to plant that seed of what possible excuses could they have besides not wanting to admit that they can't. They know that they're non-human. They can't control it. And if they want to be a threat, there's not a damn thing they can do about it, which is embarrassing. And they've known this for 75 years. And they didn't tell anybody, including Congress, who just found out in 2017. So, there's a few issues there, but you would think they would start to try and resolve that by opening up a dialogue. But so far, it's no show completely. And that is puzzling. So, yeah, that's why I brought this up is, have they made an agreement with the Israeli dude with the Galactic Federation? Who knows? But that sounds as absurd as to why they're being completely silent.
Yeah.
So I just for conversation's sake wanted to bring it up because it's ridiculous what they're doing. As ridiculous as this article sounds, it's no more ridiculous than the Air Force withholding the information that they are. They could throw us something and still maintain national security and save face on the topic.
All right. Well, that was looking at it. Looks like it was published back in 2020. All right. So let's go over this real quick. This Galactic Federation has supposedly been in contact with Israel and the U.S. for years, but are keeping themselves a secret to prevent hysteria until humanity is ready. You can interrupt me anytime you like there, Rob.
Yeah.
According to the retired Israeli officer and current Professor Hayam Eshed, the answer is yes, but this has been kept a secret because humanity isn't ready. Speaking in an interview to Yodoit, I'm not going to butcher that up, Eshed, who served as the head of Israel's space program for nearly 30 years and is a three-time recipient of the Israel Security Award, explained that Israel and the U.S. has both been dealing with aliens for years. And this by no means refers to immigrants, with Eshed clarifying the existence of Galactic Federation. The 87-year-old former head of Defense Ministry Space, which the guy's now almost 90 now, Defense Ministry Space Division gave further descriptions.
It's
The
incredible.
mhm.
I was going to say, as incredible as this sounds, the guy knows that he's, at the end of a life here. And a rational person would want to have a legacy to be remembered by that, that is in the best light possible.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call this guy crazy because I don't know flat out.
Yeah.
We have to think that if we've been shielded from all matters of the phenomena overtly for the last 5,000 years, as history indicates is the case, that there are different orders and magnitudes of the phenomena out there. At least, if like Jacques Vallée, even if it's just one playing kabuki theater with all these different artifacts that are under the same umbrella or the same orchestra, you would think that there would be, if there were more than one entity, some kind of agreement, and that by de facto would be a galactic federation or at least an accord. So, as absurd as it was 20 years ago to think that there was actually anything out there besides religious and ghosts and cryptids and other belief structures, but there was no evidence. To now having evidence, we would have thought was impossible. So, how far on the impossible scale is it now to consider that if there are, that there are intelligent, non-human intelligence out there that have been living on this planet probably longer than us, obviously? How can you think that there's only one? And if there's more than one, then there's probably likely orders of magnitude, like history would indicate, and probably factions within those. So maybe this guy isn't so far off the mark after all, at the end of the day, to consider that there are different orders and different factions within that. That would just be rational, because that's how our, each continent was set up when they didn't know of each other. It was an absurd idea to think of the other type races and civilizations in other continents. And then we found out there were. So to find out that there's other intelligent life out there, and that there's more than one, and that they have an agreement to, hey, let's just not tamper with the humans again, because each time we do, it didn't end well throughout known history. So let's just quit screwing with them and let them on their own for a while. What happens? Maybe it's not so absurd. I don't know, but it's up for, we need to examine it, because we don't know what this is. And at this point, I think it's easier to try and rule out what it isn't.
Yeah.
So, that's the path I'm going down here. We can't cross this off the list. We don't have any proof.
Yeah.
But the guy, held some very high positions, just like the Canadian government official that came out with a similar statement not long ago. So you have to wonder. And then the phenomena also influences people to
I believe he already passed away.
If their reality is genuine or not. Whether it's true or not, we don't know. But to them, it's true. Their subjective reality, it's their experience, and I'm not going to call that not, that is not truthful or not real to them. If that's what they perceived with their five senses, or six even, I'm not going to question their reality. I wasn't there. I didn't experience what they did to draw that kind of a conclusion. It's suspect because it's so outlandish to what we're used to, but so is the prospect that there are non-human intelligences, and we're getting evidence of that now. Most 99% of the people 20 years ago would have laughed in your face at this, of where we're at today. They would never thought we would at least even be where we're at now. So the absurdity scale bar keeps getting raised higher and higher.
Agreed. Now I lost my place. Let's see if I can find it.
Sorry.
Let's see. I think we already went over that. Yep. The almost 90-year-old former head of the Defense Ministry Space Division gave further descriptions. Yep. The almost 90-year-old former head of about exactly what sort of agreements have been made between the aliens and the U.S., which ostensibly have been made because they wish to research and understand the fabric of the universe. This cooperation includes the secret underground base on Mars, where there are American and alien representatives. If true, this would coincide with U.S. President Donald Trump's creation of Space Force as the fifth branch of the U.S. Armed Forces, though it is unclear how long this sort of relationship, if any, has been going on between the U.S. and its reported, but Ashad insists that Trump is aware of them and that he was on the verge of disclosing their existence. However, the Galactic Federation reportedly stopped him from doing so, saying they wished to prevent mass hysteria since they felt humanity needed to evolve and reach a stage where we will understand what space and spaceships are. That he reported. I am not going to butcher his name. And I'll tell you what, I think it's fine. They can go ahead and come out. The world's gone into hell in a handbasket, from what I understand. I don't watch the news, but those who say they watch the news, it's hysteria out there right now, isn't it, Rob?
Oh man, we're on the we're I think the nuclear clock is closer than it's been since the Cold War, of nuclear war. Um, and to think if if at some point there are actual communications opened up with this non-human intelligences, it would only stand to reason that is more than one type and magnitude and order, and that they have an agreement that they weren't gonna overtly involve themselves with humanity again, because ancient history shows that it didn't work out so well. Every time
Yeah.
we had paleo contact, like with the megaliths and stuff, that showed where gods dwelt among man and gave them different technologies, and warred like hell with each other, blew each other to hell. The gods blew each other to hell. They blew each other to hell. Entire civilizations got wiped out. There's at least 4 iterations of megalithic eras where they existed and vanished themselves, that were humanoid, of some type, that weren't mainstream humans, and they didn't evolve technologically on this planet because there's no evidence of a industrialization of a civilization going back at least 300 million years. There's nothing there in the chemical record. So whatever this technology is, at least it didn't evolve at this scale of magnitude on this planet. It could have microscopically or on a nanoscale and then scaled up, but at this scale, no, it didn't happen. And somebody wrote in the chat that we may be the aliens. No, we're native to this planet, so we're just as natural to this planet as any other living organism on it. We were born here, our ancestors were here. We didn't put ourselves here. I don't think any of the life evolved here actually, but I think there is actual proof of that, because the more they look at evolution, the more they find out that it just doesn't add up. That makes as much sense as what we just read. So at least this has some evidence of a possibility. If you think that there's one, there's got to be more than one. And if there were, likely they have an accord of some type, and that would by default kind of meet the threshold of a federation of some sort, or at least a treaty. I don't know. I mean, I'm grasping for it, but we've got to expand our thinking to the point where it's ready to break, and that's where we need to really start thinking is at that point, because logic has nothing to do with this anymore.
Well said. We'll go on. As far as he's chosen to reveal this information now, Ashed explained that the timing was simply due to how much the academic landscape has changed and how respected he is in academia. If I had come up with that, I'm saying today, 5 years ago, I would have been hospitalized, he explained. He added that today they're already talking differently. I have nothing to lose. I've received my degrees and awards, and I'm respected in the universities abroad where the trend is also changing. Ashed provided more. Ashed provided more information in his newest book, The Universe Beyond the Horizon. Conversations with Professor Haim Ashed, along with other details such as how aliens have prevented nuclear apocalypse. Oh boy. And when we can jump in and visit the Men in Black. The book is available now for NIS 98, whatever that is. While it is nuclear, if any evidence exists that could support Ashed's claims, they did come just ahead of recent announcements by Space IL, whatever that is, the group behind Israel, Space Israel, the group behind Israelis' failed attempt to land a spacecraft on the moon in 2019. Uploading to social media with the text, "Ready to get excited again," the announcement continued with 15-second video of the moon. Text saying "Back to the Moon," followed by the date December 9th, 2020. It is likely that this is a follow-up to the Bereshit spacecraft, which crashed after engineers lost contact with it minutes before it was due to land. However, the follow-up project titled Brer Sheet 2 is expected to take 3 years to be ready. Well, there you go, my friend.
It's just,
Provided by Rob.
I think it just, I want, I keep trying to challenge my imagination to expand as far as I can push it. And um, like Jacques Vallée says, it's half fact, half confusion by design, and it manifests to different people to give them a subjective reality that is just as true to them as it were to 10,000 people. We have to keep in mind what Gary Nolan was talking about recently of the three people in the car that looked up and saw, a craft that was, 30 to 40 meters across, but the picture only showed 5 or 6 meters. So that was pushed into their, telepathically pushed into their minds to perceive that. There's no reason, where would they set the limit? 10, 20, 100, 1,000, 10,000? Where would they draw the line? If they have that kind of ability, you really can't say, well, 10's credible, but 1,000 or 10,000, no, that's just impossible. We don't know what's
Right.
impossible anymore. Look at
You got
slide
that
9.
right.
We don't know what's impossible. And there are a few absolutes that we do know. Humanity is on the brink of nuclear destruction and holocaust. We're trashing the planet. We're consuming natural resources that aren't renewable. Even nuclear power isn't infinite, because the raw materials to make nuclear power plants and fuel rods and stuff aren't infinite. There's only a limited amount of nuclear materials on the planet ever, that can be used, and then it's done. And we're consuming like gangbusters here. And if let's just hypothetically say they went through the trouble to seed this planet, evolve it from the earliest organisms on up, through these, hundreds of millions of years, to evolve the planet to the beauty and splendor and diversity of life that we have now. You think if something went through that much trouble, if for instance, if it's a god that I believe in, to create something that beautiful that's the exception to the rule in our local neighborhood of this galaxy, they're, if they gave us free will, we can destroy ourselves, and that's just fine. And evidence, history shows that. I don't believe they're going to let us destroy the planet along with ourselves. And given that they have switched off and back on nuclear ICBM missiles in Russia and the United States, they shadow our, the nuclear um, assets globally. I think they are minimally telegraphing intent, trying to get us to get a message. And my biggest contention with the U.S. government is that they knew this in 1965, and with the last round of congressional hearings, and they buried it and nothing to see here. And we should have been having this conversation as a species 75 years ago, to acknowledge that there are non-human intelligences. They do telegraph something toward nuclear assets that they're not happy with, it appears, and we need to figure out what the hell that is before it's too late, because there have been entire civilizations in our human histories past where they've been wiped out to the brink of extinction. There's at least 5 times I could name in the last 50,000 years. So it's not unheard of. The average is every 3,000 years. We've gone 5,000 years now. It's the longest stretch that humanity hasn't been pushed to the brink of extinction in almost 200,000 years that we know of. So it's not unreasonable to think that they're not going to let us destroy the planet along with ourselves. And if they were going to deproliferate, would they just destroy the weapons and the ships, or the carriers of those weapons, or the troops and those weapons, or the civilization and those weapons? We don't know, but it needs to be discussed to figure it the hell out while we still have a chance. Um, even if they don't exist, and even if that's not their intent, we're still going to self-destruct with our nuclear weapons. Whether they're involved or not, it still needs to be a conversation. But human nature, as it is, unless there's outside intervention to intercede and try and break this up, and no one is going to deproliferate without an interceder that's going to force it. And
Mhm.
I, you know, I am fearful of how that would manifest itself because in times past it wasn't such a good proposition for humanity. But I think we're at a potential that we at least need to try and have a sincere dialogue to understand what message is being conveyed because they have ramped up their numbers of being seen since 1945, and it wasn't in a lot of people's thoughts that we rang the dinner bell and they came here from someplace else. That's not what the evidence shows. They've been here all along. It's just they've increased their frequency, their close proximity, and their targets of what they're around a lot more, and it keeps escalating. We're not getting the message because certain people are sitting on the information that they exist and what they're doing and what they're telegraphing, and it's not getting shared among us. I've heard that there are factions of the phenomena that don't want disclosure and want to see humanity fail, and an aspect that is for humanity and wants to see us and the planet survive, which is what reflects in the ancient religions and mythology too, that this has happened before. So, like Oppenheimer, he said, I've become death, destroyer of worlds. He recognized in reading the Vedics the description of the mushroom cloud. Humanity has been at this point before. This isn't the first time. And in Mohenjo-daro, the city, when they uncovered it, has a really high radiation background in it, and people laying in the streets that just fell down and died, and dinner is literally still on the table in a lot of places they excavated. It's just like they got nuked and wiped out, and they weren't eaten. Like most places, the cadavers would be gone. They weren't touched. Just like with the cattle mutilations, they're not been touched. There's some kind of energy that was expended on them that damaged cells, and like wolves won't eat cancer cells. Animals know that there's something about that meat that was hit with some kind of energy they don't want any part of. There's a lot in play here that we have been shielded from by other humans that we should have all been alerted to by now and informed of to make a decision as a whole, and not let just a few in back rooms and alleys and secret shadows make these decisions for us. That's not how this works. On national defense matters, I agree that that's their job. But when it comes to contact or trying to make peace or trying to figure out what their message is and what to do about it, that's all of humanity that should be involved in that, not just our government or any government.
So, the last second, I was throwing everything together, folks. So we'll go on to the next subject here, and that is, I think this is a tweet or something. Ukrainian researchers say an independent study of unidentified area phenomenon has produced images of objects that defy simple explanation. My kitty cat needs attention here. Okay. There are, hold on a second, leave me alone. Here are the surprising details on what they have learned about UAPs they now call phantoms and cosmics. What's up with that? Debrief there, Rob. What do you know? What else do you know about it?
Which part of it?
Any of it? You know about this? The debrief here.
The Ukraine
on the website.
Yeah, NASA commissioned to do research, and they took it upon themselves to do their own, and they've got some really good data that's come from that. That's corroborated a lot of what we're seeing in other nations with their findings. United States, France has got some excellent reports out. Israel, I think Brazil has got some good information coming, and Japan. We have to remember our news and mainstream especially is filtered by our government and cooperatives with our media outlets. So you have to change your search filters to European and use something outside of Google. I got a friend of mine that's developing a search engine that pulls from all different types of search engines, and it hides the cookies and it bounces the IP address, and you can set yourself to anywhere in the planet location wise and draw information from that region. And I've been experimenting with it the last month or so, and I can guarantee you what I get from the search results from that custom search engine as opposed to all the traditional ones that are out there for us. I get entirely different information, and I'm credible information, documents, facts, and things that have been pulled out that I've tested when I run the same search on the Google search engine. These government documents and FOIA releases and things have been put out, like back to 1980 and things. They don't show up. They're not anywhere in the search results whatsoever on Google and those. But when I run it through the custom one, they pop up like gangbusters. We're being fed information, painted a perception they want us to see, and it is not an accurate depiction of what the rest of the world is doing in relation to this. So we got to keep that in mind. We're being prejudiced on how we're fed information, and we've got to take initiative and seek out information from alternative sources through more credible means and sample independent sources, not just rely on one individual. We have to sample around and choose different outlets, especially when it's something overly important, to seek out at least two independent sources and first sources whenever possible. Just take it back to the original anytime you can. Don't be lazy, people, because we are being fed so much bullshit. It's unreal. And we've got to, if we're fooled by that and not doing our own research on it to confirm it, shame on us. We get what we deserve. So,
Rob, when I was in the hospital, I heard something on the news talking about whether, I think it may have been, if I heard this correctly, I really wish I captured it. Something about Congress talking about explaining the phenomenon as non-human vehicles or something like that. Do you remember hearing anything about that last few days?
What about non-human vehicles?
Not. Like they're explaining, it's almost as if they're trying to let people know very slowly that there's stuff coming. They were talking about how let me just go back and
You're talking about the crash retrievals and stuff like that?
Yeah, something like
coming
that.
out with hinting that there's going to be crash retrievals coming out to Congress that they are aware. And there's been a lot of that coming out recently of people making these soft leak disclosures. And I think there's some validity to it, that it's coming down the pipe. But I think with immunity, it's going to be a game changer. But even Monday, there's going to be a couple of senior Air Force officials being interviewed in Congress. I don't want to say interrogated. I don't like that word. Well, sometimes I do, but
interviewed.
To be interviewed by Congress, and I'm not sure what. Well, I know the context. It's regarding UAPs, but I don't know how what kind of official format the conversation is going to hold. We'll find out more, but.
Yeah, as soon as it's broadcast, you doggone right, we're going to be recording it, and we're going to be talking about it. Well, there was something else that was really cool in the news. Oh, yeah. So I was looking. By the way, if you don't know already, I'm a big James Webb Telescope fan. I've been following it for years and years before it was even launched. But so NASA, and if you go on the NASA website and some other websites, they've announced that for the first time ever, the headline, first time ever, or words of this nature, we've detected CO2 on an alien planet. Well, folks, I'm sorry to tell you, that should not have been the headline. The headline should have been, we have found alien life on an alien planet, or words of that nature, because CO2, if you look it up, carbon dioxide, it is created by exhaling. It's not natural. It's something created by exhaling. Okay? That's what we've been looking for. That's what we've all been wanting to know. if we're going to be able to detect with their light sensors whether these elements are in the atmosphere. And sure as shit, it's there. We got it. That should have been, folks. We got it. That's it. But people just want to act. It should have been like
that on
we found
Venus,
life.
but they retracted it.
Yeah,
They said it was premature. But the upper atmosphere, because I actually helped with the contest through NASA on designing a Venus rover a couple of years ago, and in 2020, Hero X, on designing one that wouldn't melt because the average temperature is like 900 degrees on the surface with sulfuric acid rain. But in the upper atmosphere, it's actually halfway hospitable to where we could live up in the upper atmosphere in floating cities and things. It's not completely out of the realm of possibilities that it's inhabitable up there, and that other life could exist there, like on Europa and other places. We've seen extremophiles that can live that are not carbon based, they're silicone based or something of that nature. That in high heat vents, thermal vents at the bottom of the ocean, things where they didn't expect any life could exist. So there's a good possibility that type of life form could exist on Venus, even if they didn't have any advanced life there anymore. But then again, you got to take into consideration we're seeing a lot of this coming out of the oceans, volcanoes. Good probability they're under the oceans, living inside of the earth, because there are all kinds of pits and we don't know how big of voids are in the Earth's crust. It's a pretty big place. It's entirely possible they're within the inside the planets and moons and things, because as you found, it's a pretty inhospitable place being out on the surface, especially like with Earth getting hit every 2,000 to 3,000 years and getting put through the ringer. If you had the technology to go deep, why wouldn't you? Just makes sense. Build a bigger house. You don't make it out of straw when you can build it out of concrete. So going deep adds to the longevity of a species. So it just makes, it's just practical sense. But
next article. Yeah. All right. I got this one for Rob from Ross Cohart. The best of what proof Dr. Gary Nolan told us why he believes the Admiral Wilson memo is a real account of a hidden crash retrieval program. Revelations of U.S. military attempts to secretly seed a Hollywood show with the real secrets of the universe. Why those drones ain't drones. It ain't drones, man. Those ain't no drones.
No. That may be a slang term for them, but not in the conventional sense of we go down to Radio Shack and fire up and throw some batteries into. That ain't them. So, and each, like I said before, each branch and each intelligence group, I think, has their own internal language for what they use as a slang for UAP or UFO to avoid the FOIA process. And I don't blame them. A lot of this stuff need to be kept as a matter of national security, because if our adversaries knew what we considered UAP shaped craft, they could easily at some point evolve their own technologies to mimic that. And the element of surprise is the best historical tactic to get the upper hand in a war, hands down. And we can't give out all those shapes and sources and methods of how we discern those signatures. We do have to walk a fine line and balance with that. My biggest fear isn't against the phenomena itself. It's against other nations. If they think we're on the cusp of developing reverse engineered technologies that would give us a profound advantage over other nations, like that weirdness with the Navy patents with Salvador Payas a couple of years ago, when that made no sense. It still doesn't. Someday we'll know what that was about, maybe, but if other nations think that they have to take us out before we get, next, 15 generations ahead, and it's a complete game over as far as them having any kind of defense. They might get a little froggy on that, and
Hmm.
we don't want to trigger a war arbitrarily by what they think we do or don't have, and that's a serious consideration that they have to weigh. And in the Air Force's defense, they have, they are tasked with, if you lose air superiority, you're done. And they've proven that in Ukraine even too, because since Russia can't get air superiority, they can't take the
Hmm.
country. That's our Air Force's job, is to prevent that from happening. Now, they can't against the phenomena, obviously, and they know it, but they don't want to come out and just openly admit it and, you know, show their underbelly how they're vulnerable we are.
I know they're just complicit. Sorry for interrupting. Yeah, it was appropriate for the Air Force. They they definitely know more than they're saying, and they're not saying anything, Rob.
Yeah.
The article right up here. So Rob sent me this too. Rob's just full of it here. I got to get closer to the eye. This is from D. Gene Johnson here. So basically, what's going on there, Rob? Because that text is too small for me to read. So what's going there on that tweet right there? You can tell me about. I don't know if you can see it at all.
Dean
I might be able to
Johnson.
go to. Yeah.
Oh yeah, a friend of mine, the Disclosure Revolution, Osvaldo Franco, he DM'd me and told me that he got a Senator Gillibrand that was going to allow him to interview her, and also he had any recommendations to let her know. So he asked me if I had any, and I'm like, yeah, I can try and think of something, but Christopher Mellon weighed in on his tweet when he put that out there looking for questions, and yep, there it is. Ask her when they will put the U.S. Air Force on the carpet to just get some straight answers. Yeah, go back and read his scathing article from February this year of why the Air Force is AWOL on this. He lists out every sensory capability they have back to the 50s with hyperlinks, so you can research to your heart's content for days on end and see all the capabilities they have. And they have no excuse for trying to claim they don't know what this is, because they damn sure, if anybody on the planet knows, it's them, and they know it way back before. So they definitely know what's going on, entry points, and there's been a lot of people in the know that I've heard come on the record that I have not heard anybody yet in any capacity from any country state that they have seen anything coming in from outer space into our atmosphere beyond the moon, and especially it's all been coming in from low Earth, mid Earth orbit, or in from there. Nothing from deep space that you would think of that we would consider an extraterrestrial. That's why they consider them ultra terrestrials. Like with the Nimitz encounter, the Navy's limited capability of their battle space, they don't know where they came in from. They could have looped around from the ocean on another side of the planet, came in through the mid orbit and dropped down. But the Air Force does have vision around the planet out to middle orbit, and they can track everything down to 10 centimeters in size, like 24,000 targets they're tracking that perpetually. So to say that they don't know what was raining down on the Nimitz encounter, where they came from, where they went, what quantities there were, they have to know that information. There's no way they couldn't, with all the different technologies that they have that Chris lays out in that article. There's no excuse to them not knowing. And if they don't, despite all that technology and information, they need fired. Look what happened to Russia when they went to war and they found out that all the training and all the money that was supposed to be spent on all these different weapon systems and all that crap actually went to buying yachts and things that they shouldn't have been spending their money on, and they were nowhere near prepared for a war that they thought they were. And we need to make sure we're getting our money's worth out of the Air Force, which I assume we are. So I just have to wonder, like Christopher Mellon does, why the abject, staunch refusal to acknowledge anything. It's just really confounding at this point.
So you sent me a link to a video. If you remember what the video is, can you tell us, lead us into this video, exactly what's going on?
I have to see it first. I sent you so much stuff on. I think that's the one where he was getting information from Christopher Mellon, where he was throwing in. Is that the one?
I'm going to play it. Let's play
The
it.
picture?
Senator Gillibrand, I want to thank you on behalf of so many of my friends and colleagues for your UAP reform support. Yes. When I have some questions.
Yes.
When can we expect a public hearing regarding UFOs and UAPs, specifically with these reforms in place?
I'm supposed to get a report in the next, I think, month or two.
Yes, ma'am.
They briefed our staff, but it wasn't very significant. Not a lot of information. They're building the office right now, and they understand what the mission is. So I met the guy who's in charge of the office. He understands he's supposed to work in the private sector, and all the people who have all the data and information. He's also asked to go back and look at all of the archival data. He has not been able to get access to it. As you can imagine, it's probably siloed in all sorts of
Yes,
places.
ma'am, it is.
And so his job is to try to get access to all of it. And if he can't, I said, just go forward. If you can't get the historic stuff, get what's in the private sector, get the private sector data, like FAA data, correlate it, investigate all the other things that are current, and just create a state-of-the-art office. And he's committed, and they're taking it seriously. They're not going to hide it, because there's so many of us now on the Intel Committee and Armed Services that we're going to stand by the service members who documented this stuff. They have video, they have radar, they have heat sensors, they have everything.
Materials.
They have it. So I'm not going to let it go. I'm 100% committed, and if you have information you want to help,
Yes, I do, very much so.
Why don't we get your card? And
Yes, ma'am.
We'll collaborate.
I would very much like to. Also, can I interview you? I'm trying to do a public affairs show about this. Thank you so much.
It was almost distracting. That handler doing his job, I couldn't go into politics.
Yeah.
Every time I'm trying to talk to somebody, I got someone doing this. You just leave me alone. Oh.
Yeah. That's the same guy that. Yeah, he got the interview with her, or he's going to schedule the interview, and has her number to get that information to. You caught what she was saying when she said that he was having trouble. The guy was having that's setting this program up is having trouble getting hold of the legacy information. He's running into brick walls with that. That has been. We keep hearing that with every government UAP program they have, including Lou's, that they have hit walls with either they're hiding or they just refuse to open the door. No, you can't come in here. This is our club and you don't have the secret handshake. Sorry, take a hike. And they're like, well, you have to have proper clearance. And well, where do we get that? Well, everybody that could give it to you is dead now. So, see ya. And that's the problem, and why I think a lot of the immunity is going to be offered, because I think they had good intentions, but when they run such classified projects that, like what we had with Harry Reid, they're all the people that originated that in 07 with him they're all dead now. And when the people that, when congressional oversight dies away on these programs, the programs don't have anybody to report to anymore because their handlers are gone. So who do they pick up a call and say, hey, guess what? We got this program and maybe you want to know about it? It doesn't work that way from what I understand. So, it's unfortunate, but I think that's why they're reaching out with the language that they're doing in the bill, and people sitting on this information that's vital for national security, even if it's never brought to the public. That's I'm not saying all of it, but as far as the interests of national security, they need to have that conversation with our DOD as a whole and the intelligence committees of Congress. They need to be aware of what's going on to make the most informed decisions that they possibly can. So even if they can't share a lot with the public, there's a lot they can if they take out the source message to prove the phenomenon is real. The rest of it, I get national security. I'm all on board with that. But, you know, the Air Force needs to do something because this doesn't look good for them. It just doesn't look good at all. How many schools exist covertly? I have no idea. Psychic schools, no clue. I just, you know, remote viewing and stuff worked, but it wasn't popular. And you can't go to a president and say, hey, we know what the nuclear subs look like and where they're being built. And I go, how do you know? Oh, well, our psychic pulled it up. And, you know, they don't really like throwing money at that, even if they have proven in the past after the fact on some of it that it was accurate. It's still a little, until they get it mainstream accepted that it works. We can't explain it, but it does work. And for them to accept that kind of information, that's where the overclassification is another example of hurting national security. That, you know, we've got to get a handle on it. So I'm trying to.
So as you're going through the comment section there, I want to go ahead and remind everybody we got 20 people right now watching live. I want to thank each and every one of you. Also, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and for our upcoming videos, make sure you hit that notification, because you just never know when Rob and I will have a wild hair up our butts and decide, you know, let's go on right now. In fact, we're going to go on early than we just said. So do that, and I do appreciate everybody hanging out with us this evening, going over some things. It seems like every day we got stuff coming out, Rob.
Yeah. And
I mean, we can just
go ahead.
I mean, just sit back and just, you know, we can just go on Twitter and just, there's so much content that we can put on the show. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. We're trying to stay with the main thrust of the core of the conversation to move it forward, because it's not, you know, we need to stop arguing with people about if it exists or not. You know, that for most of us, that debate has already been settled long ago. You know, it's a matter of what is it? What are they? You know, how many is it? How many they are there? What's their intent now? If we look throughout history, and there's solid evidence of this in historical accounts of it. You go back and read Jacques Vallée's works and several others. Even the Old Testament and Vedics and Zoroastrianism, all of them have accounts of you don't have to believe in the gods of it, as I do, but you can believe the historical context and narrative of it, that they were not of one accord. The gods warred with each other for the fate of humanity. And you know, this last time around, they, you know, the ones that were against us lost, wiping us out, lock, stock, and barrel. They took all the technology away. They were kept from overtly involving themselves because all megalithic construction stopped. It all came to a dead stop. You know, 3000 BC or so. The information was gone. The tech was gone. The paleo contact was gone. We don't know who they were that built the megaliths, because they didn't, you know, there are petroglyphs and stuff around that show the Syrians and things like that they ascribed to the Anunnaki and things that look like they were, you know, these huge guys on steroids with some really cool looking wristwatches, but we don't know for sure what those were. And there's no alien DNA to say that we're hybrids, because we don't know what alien DNA looks like. It's all terrestrial. It'd have to come in from space, from a confirmed non-human entity to compare it to have a sample of alien DNA to even establish that. So, you know, that in itself is problematic. And I'm not denying that there could be hybrids, because at this point, you know, there are many accounts attributing to their being to completely dismiss it. Just because I'm not aware of it or don't have all the evidence of it doesn't mean I'm going to rule it out anymore. Like, you know, I'm not going to be a Mick West if I don't see the evidence, or Neil deGrasse Tyson. If it doesn't land on my lawn and want to have a cookout, then it doesn't exist. That's just hubris, and it's just not productive. We need to stop arguing with people like that stop arguing amongst ourselves and focus on the data and focus on the research and forget about fighting for position with this. It doesn't matter who breaks the story first or what. It's just, team players work as a team. These are individuals that are fighting it out. And I don't want to be an individual. I want to be a team player with this.
Yeah, I do like the team we're on there, Rob.
Yeah. The Scottish picture, I think that's valid. I do think it's a UAP from what I've heard. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, definitely. The team we're on, I'm all for, man.
There's Xavier, hold on one second. I got to show you something. Now, Rob, did you get my picture in the mail today or yesterday or?
No, I have not.
Well, you'll be getting it maybe tomorrow. But check this out, folks. I get chill bumps when I think about it. Here in my hands is an 8x10. There you go. That's what I sent you, Rob. I also sent a copy to Lou.
Yeah, that'd be cool as hell.
That is so cool, man. This is what what's his name? What's his name? Who had it up on his wall?
Nick Pope.
Darn it, Nick Pope.
Nick Pope. Yeah.
Nick Pope. Yeah, he was talking about this for years and years, having this blown up on his office wall, and then it disappeared. And he had an artist rendition of it, which is better than nothing. It was close, but no cigar. And long story short, that picture showed up. We talked about it in what was it? Chasing Unicorns. Just sometimes you catch one. I never thought I'd never see that picture ever.
One of the former investigators in that case kept one of the negatives for himself, and that was the provenance of that. And Lou did state about DNA on Kurt Jamangal. If you were going to want to have information stored for the long haul for millions of years on the planet, where would you put it? Humans share DNA with 98% of everything else on the planet. So something's got to survive at some point, unless we sterilize everything. You want to talk about having a hall of records or an archive of all information ever. Even we are finding that our emotional, some of our strongest emotional encounters that we go through as individuals is encoded into our individual DNA and passed on to our offspring. They're finding just more and more stuff that is not physical. It's more esoteric in nature is being passed on into our DNA. So at this point, I don't know what all. I'm not going to rule out anything at this point of being stored into a person's DNA and passed on and being encoded. It's like the internet. A biological internet comparison. Everything's getting encoded into the DNA, and for those that know how to read it, like the nervous system and the immune system. The immune system records everything that ever happens to a human body, emotionally, physically. It's all recorded in there. So something you got to tap into that and play it back. There's your recording of it. Here's your life.
Rob, I think I can demonstrate an example of what you're saying. Let's say you're walking down a path, and all of a sudden a snake runs out in front of you. There's a human reaction to that. It's normally like this, right? Like I handle snakes. I can handle snakes, poisonous snakes. I've done it many times. But every time I have when I come to this a situation where I meet a snake, it's a reaction where you step back, right? It gets the adrenaline going. That is probably part of it. What you're saying. Yeah. It's a natural. It's encoded in our bodies to react that way. No. That's right, Mikey. Mikey is reminding us, ladies and gentlemen, we have 20 days until our Disney trip.
Awesome.
Which I talked about earlier. So yes, 20 days. He is very excited.
They have, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, they have had people under hypnotism that had supposedly irrational fears, and when they hypnotized them, they talked about past lives where they were killed by that certain fear that they had, or they had a particular birthmark in an unusual place, and they found out that they had died, and that was where the fatal wound was. That they, then they went back historically and found that person's name and how they died. Like one was ran over by a coach wheel, one was shot, and they had a weird, birth birthmark on their body that indicated that person with that name was killed in that manner when they're put in.
I heard of that story.
There's
Very
a
good
lot
story.
of stories like that. So
That's crazy. If I find that story, we're going to bring it up because that is a crazy, awesome story.
there's several of them like that. Dozens upon dozens of them. And they're provable. I thought it was, just clickbait, BS,
Yeah.
but you know how I research things. No, some of these were the real deal. They were proven that they had no knowledge of previously of the past lives and the way they died until they were under hypnosis and told about it, and then they went and did the research and found out that there was somebody that died like that, in that manner by that name, and then they were related, or a small child that was telling its parents that it was that he was the reincarnation of a child that they had lost just a couple of years prior to that. And really strange, sensitive topic, but we just don't know. We don't know what we are. I don't think. After the last flood, they had all these archaeoacoustic sites that were seminal to all of all the majority of megalithic structures were on high energy earth grid zones with high archaeoacoustic properties to be able to enter a higher consciousness state of meditation or prayer or reflection, whatever you want to call it. That it was so important to them. It was the centerpiece of their civilizations across the planet. We've lost that in the last 5,000 years of what that was. We may have other means, lines of communion now, but as a whole, we've lost some forms of communication there that were evidently in connection with something that ain't us. I believe in prayer, and prayer works, but so does other types of meditation. So, I can't explain it. That's why it's called faith, not fact. But the fact remains, it's a real artifact, and no, you can't disprove a negative, and you can't disprove that a God exists through absence of evidence. Just like you can't disprove that aliens don't exist because we can't find, overt evidence of it right now. It's just an absurd argument.
Yeah, you could say I have faith that this does exist, right? Because I've never met one. You and I haven't had our own experience, so we're going through this as a faith, something we believe.
And I had my near-death experience where God spoke to me, and I believe kept me from dying twice that I know of for sure. But the second time he spoke to me, just as I'm talking to you now, and show me visions in my mind of things that were going to come to pass, and he did. I can't deny that. I wouldn't deny it. That I had faith before that, but that just reinforced it and made me understand that every day after that was a gift that I'm trying to give back. For still being here. I'm not going to take that for granted. So, there's a lot more to being human than we realize, and to what we are encountering on this planet and what life is. Fundamentally, it's precious. And, those people that try and say that we're on a penal colony or that we're just food stock or whatever, you look in a zoo and they're in cages, and there's no joy in that, being locked inside of a little cell, or puppies inside of a laboratory that are being experimented on. We've got things, we have the capacity to love. There's all this beauty and variety in the world. that to me is the hand of a master artist. That, and I've told people before, a loving parent doesn't willingly abandon their children, and if you have the power to stay there and protect them and look over them, you do. And this is the hand of an architect, that loves their creation. And I'm not just talking about just humans. I'm talking about the whole of this earth, of all the natural life. And like Lewis talked about with the Native Americans and things that talk about their sky brothers, and that these sky brothers are just as natural to their environment as butterflies are and their buffalo. They've always been there, and they've always known of them. They've even found evidence of little people that are less than 18 inches tall up where Lou lives in Wyoming and things, that they had entire races of little people, which we know from ancient history. They're global. But has anybody found one? No. And when they find, like Pedro, the little skeleton that they found in a cave, even that got carted away by somebody. I dare say it, I hate conspiracies, but I don't see it as a conspiracy when the Smithsonian has socked away so many different artifacts, in the last 150 years. People say, hey, I had this great specimen, but the Smithsonian, came in and said, hey, sign here, we'll return it, and never to be seen again, just like the Vatican does. They're playing to a narrative, and everybody plays their games, intentional or not. It's some for the betterment of humanity, or they think they are, but they're human, they're fallible. We all make mistakes. It's just trying to not make the same ones twice, and
learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, and be a positive person.
All right. I'm out of material. Rob, do you have anything else you'd like to add to our broadcast this evening? I think we did well. We got over an hour and 6 minutes. We had up to 23 live folks during our live show today, which are doing pretty good with last second throwing stuff up here on the screen.
Well, I think Tim, UFO Man's going live, or just went live a few minutes ago, and I'd encourage people to go over there and check him out tonight.
Yes.
He's got his favorite rock band, alien rock group, that's on tonight. I highly recommend people cruise over there and check him out and see what they've got cooking, because I think we're about done for the night.
Yep. So we recommend them go over there right now. Anything else, Rob? Last call? That it?
Nope. We'll be back. But anything you want to, reach out to us anytime, send questions, post it in the comments after this, reach out, we'll be glad looking at anything.
All right. Switch the channel to UFO Man. Good night, folks.
I'll take care, all right? Nothing but love for you. Nothing but love for you. You think they have any clue what's about to happen to them?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.